We go. All right, Ashley, it's all you.
Okay, awesome. So today our presentation is how to leverage SEO for your business. So my goal with this presentation is to kind of break SEO down a little bit and kind of explain why it's important and give you some actionable items that you can do moving forward from here. Because I feel like SEO often gets a bad rep as being too confusing or unachievable, but in reality, it's really just small changes that you can make that'll make a really big difference for your website. So hopefully you can grab some action items and a little bit better understanding of what SEO actually is. So first things, I'm just gonna give a little overview of who I am. So my name is Ashley. I also go by Ash. So my little tagline is RHN and site grad turned SEO expert. So when I first started school, I did my undergrad in psychology and neuroscience, and I wanted to work in healthcare. I did a diploma in natural nutrition, and I was pretty keen to work as a naturopathic doctor. I wanted to go through for school for that. But I ended up realizing that I really loved the marketing side of healthcare and working with passionate entrepreneurs. So I actually went back to school for a graduate certificate in digital marketing, and I have been working in SEO ever since. So I've worked with over 100 clients, and it's one of my favorite types of marketing, and I'm so passionate about it. And I think it's one of the most powerful inbound techniques. And I think one of my goals is kind of to make it a little bit more accessible to people who feel that it's overwhelming or that they don't even know where to get started. So, and just a couple fun facts. I am coming from Mexico, or I am calling in from Mexico. So yeah, I'm super stoked to be here. And so for today, our agenda. So I'm going to go over what is SEO, why use SEO, and then, like I said, 5 action items to implement. So I believe that kind of the best way to take the overwhelm out of SEO is to really understand what it is. Because I feel like often it just SEO gets thrown around and people don't even really necessarily know what it is or how Google works. So it can be hard to try to optimize for something that you don't even fully understand. Also important to understand how powerful it can be as a marketing channel to kind of give you that push to, try to overcome the little bit of a learning curve that comes with it. So I am just curious what people's current kind of like level of experience is with SEO. How do you feel about it? Like, what's the kind of general feeling? Meredith?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer what my understanding is. So I feel like it's strategy to your website to help increase like your Google ranking and the traffic to your website, ultimately to convert them to clients. And I believe there are 3 buckets of SEO. I'm sure you're going to cover them, so I won't list them off.
That's okay.
And what else? That's kind of like my Coles notes, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's awesome.
Anyone else?
I can jump in too. I come from like a copywriting background, so I have like some knowledge of SEO, but I feel like I haven't really like looked at it in a few years, sort of thing, and it can change so much. So like my understanding is it's sort of like, to me, it's like tricks I can do in like the actual in-page content, but also on the back end of a website to increase those Google rankings, like Meredith mentioned.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll cover a lot of that today. So hopefully you get some good tips. Okay, if no one else wants to jump in, that's okay. I just wanted to get kind of a general feeling for how we're feeling. So I will jump in then. So what is SEO? So SEO at its most basic is a form of organic marketing that involves optimizing your website according to known ranking factors to encourage trust and authority with Google. So what does that mean? So organic marketing basically means it's not paid marketing. So it's organic in that it's an inbound marketing technique that you might have to pay to implement or to learn it, but you're not paying per click or anything like that, like with ads or something like that. And then known ranking factors. So another way to say this is the algorithm, or how Google chooses to place your website in their index, which I'm going to explain a little bit in a minute. And then to encourage trust and authority with Google. So ultimately, at the end of the day, Google wants people to use their search engine and to have the best user experience possible. So building trust and authority and understanding with Google is more or less what we're trying to do with SEO. We're trying to optimize the website or optimize a page so that Google understands it and trusts it. And then if we can cover those bases through optimizing for the known ranking factors, then we're going to show up higher, because Google believes that this piece of content is kind of like the best thing to serve for that search query or whatever we're trying to target. So I think step kind of 0 to understanding SEO is understanding how Google even works. So I don't even think, like, when I was in marketing school, I knew how Google worked. And so it all just seemed very foreign to me. So Google works by crawling your website using what's called a spider. It's basically like a robot, and they crawl each page of your website, and these spiders are going constantly all the time. They're always crawling. So they use these spiders to crawl and then index your website. So then they need, essentially, Google has an index of all of the internet, right? So when you're searching something, you're not just searching into the World Wide Web. You're searching into Google's index of the web. So this is why sometimes if you make changes on your website, you might see the old version on Google, or you might be confused why, I just updated that. Why is it? It's because Google hasn't re-crawled and re-added the changes yet. So there can sometimes be a delay, or sometimes you might post something and then you don't see it on Google. It's because it hasn't been indexed yet. So it's not in their library yet. So Google uses these spiders to crawl your website, and then they use their ranking factors or their algorithm to determine where your page should live in the index. So SEO is important because, when we see a website, we see this, right? And we see the front end. And to us, it makes perfect sense. We're like, oh yeah, okay, they're a graphic designer, or they're a copywriter, or they're a therapist, or whatever. But this is what Google sees. So if you're not adding some optimizations to, help Google to understand, like, this is what this page is about, this is why it's covering all the important information, etc., then Google's not going to show you for those terms. Even if you have amazing content, if it's not like properly optimized, you won't be showing up as well as you could be, So this is where SEO really comes in, is that it's basically just helping Google to understand and trust your content. So how do we feel about that so far? Following along? Mostly? Okay. Okay, so what are ranking factors? So ranking factors are the criteria or the algorithm, like I just mentioned, that Google uses to determine where your website should be placed on a URL or a page by page basis. So essentially, you can optimize each page using 3 different types of techniques. And I think this is what Meredith was alluding to, so there's 3 different main types of optimizations that you can do that satisfy different types of ranking factors. So the first one is the most I would say probably one of the most well-known and the most common, I would say almost, is on-page SEO or on-page SEO optimizations. So these include things like heading structures, keyword optimization, meta titles and descriptions. It's all of the things that you have control of on your website. So it's things that you can optimize within your website. And then there's off-page SEO. So this is basically things that you have control over that are not on your website. So these are things like Google My Business, directories, also called citations, inbound links, also called backlinks. So if you ever hear the term link building, that's what that's referring to. And then you have technical SEO. And so that includes things like your site speed, your core web vitals, the way that your website's organized, so your website hierarchy, 404 pages, redirects, all of that kind of stuff that makes sure that like the bones of your website are good. Because again, Google wants to serve things that are user friendly, that are quick, that are gonna keep people around, So you just really want to, SEO is basically trying to satisfy these things for Google. And then it works, it's all things that are good anyways, right? Like when you build a website, you want to have things quick, you want to have things organized well and all these. So SEO gets this kind of like thing where like people start to think it's like magic or something, but it's just optimizing your website in a way that Google and the user can understand. And so why SEO? So, I mean, this could be an hour presentation in and of itself. I just go off about how amazing SEO is, but like I mentioned before, it's an organic marketing method, so an unpaid marketing method that allows you to reach new audiences without paying for ads, or a big one is without living on social. A lot of clients that come to me and they're like, I'm so sick of being on social media all the time. I need to make my website work for me a little bit more. So some of the reasons why I think SEO is just an absolute must-have is, one, it puts your website to full use. So you can have the most beautiful website ever, but if it's not fully optimized, then you're not going to be showing up organically. So it's like you've almost got like your website 80%, but that last 20%, that's where SEO really comes in, and that's where you're really going to pull people to the website. And then on that notion, it's also great for consistent lead generation. So kind of also going back to the social media and the paid ads, it's with social media, you have to be, like posting all the time or on stories and things like that. But with SEO, your website's kind of working for you 24/7. So if somebody's searching for a physiotherapist at 1 a.m., they're going to find you regardless, So it's something that SEO is something that you want to continuously work on, but it can also be like a continuous lead generation system. So it's going to still work. Like the optimizations you do 6 months, or the optimizations you do one day can still be working for you kind of like 6 months down the road, or however long, depending on how competitive the industry is. It's also really great for brand awareness and reaching new audiences. So this is especially great for like blogging, and when you're blogging and stuff like this, if you can kind of, write content around FAQs and things that people are asking around specific pain points, it's a great way to kind of get in front of people who are they might not even know that they need your services, but now you're showing up for somebody who's Googling, are my hormones out of whack? Or how do I do this with my logo or whatever? If you can get in front of them in all of these places, is a great way to kind of increase your brand awareness. And then into the next bullet point, it also improves your credibility and your trust. So if somebody's Googling all this stuff related to what you offer and they see your name pop up again and again and again, they're going to be like, whoa, this person really knows what they're talking about. So how do we start? Where do we get started? So I have some sequential tips. So they kind of all build on each other that you can implement to get your website optimized. So some of them might seem a little technical depending on kind of where you're at with your SEO knowledge. The way that I kind of like to teach is to give more information, and then you can kind of reel it back a little bit if you need to. But this is kind of, these 5 tips, 5.5 tips, are basically from start to finish. If you follow these, your website will be foundationally optimized in a really great sense. Like I would say more so than 90% of the websites that are online. So we're going to take it slow, and hopefully you can gain some good insights into what needs to be done. How are we feeling? Does anybody have any questions right now?
I do. Curious to know, how often should we be, I guess, updating the SEO on our websites? You kind of touched on refreshing it a bit. So I'm curious to know like what the frequency should be.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would say, so this presentation is going to be mostly focused on kind of optimizing your core website pages, those types of things. Usually once you optimize them, you can kind of monitor. And if you feel like, oh, it's not really like my homepage isn't really ranking as high for my target keyword as I want, then you could go back, you could add some more content, you could do some further optimizations, stuff like that. But usually once you kind of optimize, as long as you're not changing things on the page, you should be okay as far as optimizations. But how you can continue is to continue to build new content, continue to do some off-page SEO, continue to, link your new content, things like that. But I would say kind of once your website is like foundationally optimized, you don't necessarily need to keep going back in unless you feel that it's not performing the way that you want it to. Yeah. Or it slips or something like that. Like if you're in first position and you slip, you might need to go back in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, now I'm curious to know where I find out where my ranking is, because I don't think I even know that. So, but this might be a snowball of questions.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, let's go through some of the steps, and then I'll talk to you about how to kind of like check that out. So we'll come back to that. Any other questions, or are we okay to get started? Good. Okay. So step one. Okay, so this is a foundational step that I feel is so helpful for everything. It's helpful for when you're trying to check rank tracking, so down the road. It's helpful for everything. Don't skip this one. It seems silly, but it's like the best way to start, and it just makes the whole process less overwhelming. And this is a really, really easy step. You can do it in like 10 minutes. So what I usually do is create what's called a keyword map. So I do this right in Google or right in Microsoft Word. And I literally just make a little chart, 2 columns. On one column, I put the URLs that I want to optimize. And on the other side, I write the keyword that I want to use, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But all you need to do is create a keyword map or create a box, put the URLs from your website that you want to optimize. I usually recommend starting with your pages because your pages tend to be the most lead focused. They're the ones that are the easiest to kind of optimize for hormone nutritionist or psychotherapist or show it graphic designer or those kind of things. So those tend to be the most transactional sort of content. So just grab your URLs, grab your page links, and put them into the keyword map. And that's all you need to do for step 1. Are we good with step 1? Good. Okay. And then step 2. So we're going to get a little bit of keyword research. I'm curious if anybody, and you can just write it in the comments if you have or haven't. I'm curious if people here have done keyword research or like know kind of what keyword research is or like where we kind of stand on that. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so a little bit of somewhat no. Okay, that's totally fine. So I'm gonna go through what you really need to do. And I feel keyword research can be really like confusing, but it honestly doesn't need to be. You can do it because we've got our URLs all set up. We already know which pages we want to optimize. We just need to do a little bit of keyword research around the content on those pages. So for anyone who's not sure, a keyword is the search query that somebody's actually typing into Google to find information or a service or a product. So when we say keyword, find kind of what people using. In Toronto. So I am trying to optimize for my clinic. So I have my homepage, I have an about page, and I have some service pages. So I need to do keyword research for those pages to optimize them. So I would usually go like something a little high level. I would use maybe like I would start to think of some keywords that I think people might be using to try to find my website. So I might use like counseling Toronto, psychotherapy Toronto, therapy Toronto, maybe some specific types of services like EMDR or whatever, specific types. And I'm going to just put those all into a Word document. I'm just going to, whatever I think, I'm going to go per URL, and I'm going to put kind of what I think people might be using into a Word document. And then once I have my list, I'm going to run them through a tool like either Keyword Planner. I would say don't use Keyword Planner unless you run ads, because otherwise it can be a little tricky to set up. But if you run Google Ads, you can use Keyword Planner. It's pretty easy. Or Ubersuggest is a really, you can do a free trial. It's a keyword SEO tool. And you just run those keywords through your Keyword Planner to gain some insights. So if you're like, I have no freaking clue what you're talking about, this is a picture of what Ubersuggest looks like. So if you were to use Ubersuggest, you can use that list of keywords that you've put together of things that you just think, okay, maybe this is what people are using to find me. You type those into keyword ideas, and it'll give you, let me just open it so I can see it a little bit. It'll give you insights like the volume, so how often that specific term is being searched every month, and it'll give you some insights into difficulty. I would just ignore cost per click and paid difficulty for right now. You don't really, that's more for ads. So all you need to look at is the volume and the difficulty. So the volume is literally the monthly searches in that country, and the difficulty is how difficult it's going to be for you to rank for that term. So in this example, I'm not sure if you can read it because I can barely read it. Can you read it, Meredith? Anyone? No? Okay. Well, it's not as helpful as I wanted it to be. Basically, you can, if we could read it, we would be able to see that Therapy Ontario has significantly more searches than Counseling Ontario. So even though, to me, they almost mean the same thing, but doing some keyword research allows me to see, okay, so now that I'm doing all of this work, I'm going to optimize for Therapy Ontario because it has more than double the amount of searches. So this is why you really want to do the keyword research. You want to see, kind of make sure. Sometimes people have this really great program and they're like, I'm going to optimize for this really specific thing. And then you run it through keyword research, like through your keyword research, and you're like, nobody is searching that, So it's a really good opportunity to make sure that what you're doing is going to actually pay off. Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say about keyword research. I'm curious if anybody has any questions about that.
Yes. Okay, so is there, between the volume and the difficulty, can there be, like, how do I explain this? I see it sort of almost like hashtags where like some of the strategy was like, you want a little bit of ones that are really highly searched, but then sometimes they can be searched too much, which makes the difficulty. Like, is there some kind of, like, what number, I guess, are we looking for? Or am I making sense? Is my question making sense?
Totally. Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So you're kind of looking for like a little bit of a sweet spot if you can find it. So obviously the higher search volume with the lower search difficulty, that's kind of, sometimes you find those little golden nuggets that are really low in difficulty and really high in volume. I would say if you're like a newer-ish website, I would try to keep things under maybe like 30 for difficulty. And if you have a more strong website, an older website, you might be able to go a little higher, or like in this case, they're pretty much all around 50 difficulty. So there's not really too much you can do. The only thing you can really do is try to make your website a little bit more relevant and strong. But yeah, so you're wanting to go as high on volume as you can and as low on difficulty. But sometimes people feel like, oh, there's only 10 searches or 20 searches or something for this term. It's not a complete write-off, especially if the keyword difficulty is low. It might be worth, like, even though it's lower, it can be tempting to go after something that has 500 search volume, but then it has like a keyword difficulty of like 75. It's like, you're better off to rank in like the top 5 for something that only has 20 searches than rank on the 3rd page for something that has 400, or like the 5th page for something that has 400. So
does the difficulty go to 100?
Yeah, it's
okay.
1 to 100 or 0 to 100.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do we have any other questions about keyword research? I know that was like a really quick overview. I know we could do a whole hour on how to actually do that in depth, but Are we okay to move forward?
Sorry, I just have one quick question. I had to
Yeah.
sign out of my PC and onto my phone to go get the kids from school. So I missed a big chunk. Do you say which website this is that we can search the words search these keywords on?
Yeah, totally. So
Okay.
it's called Uber Suggest, just to repeat it. But yeah, if you watch the replay or when you get the slides, you'll be able to see that. And they have, I
Okay.
think you can do like a certain number of free searches a day. And then they also do like a 7-day free trial. So I usually recommend it to people, just do all your keyword research in the free time and then just cancel your subscription or whatever.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next slide. So step 3, it's another easy-ish one, like the first one. So now we have our list of keywords that we've put through the keyword planner, and then we have our list of URLs. So we're gonna pick one keyword, one unique keyword per URL. So, and we're just gonna put those into the columns. So pretty straightforward. So now we have a plan. So now we know each URL has a target keyword with sufficient search volume and a reasonable competitiveness. And this is honestly, I think this is 80% of it. This is the hardest part in my opinion, is, you know, choosing those keywords for each page. And then it's just a matter of doing the optimizations. And the good thing about the optimizations is they're rinse and repeat. We're basically going to do the same thing for every page. We just need to have a unique keyword per page. So the hardest part is done. So now we're going to do the on-page optimizations. So we have our list, we have our plan, we know what we're going to optimize each page for. So now we're going to go through and we're going to touch on the most important places to actually add your optimizations. So I'm curious again, if anybody has ever done any on-page optimizations, maybe with keywords that they just like intuitive keywords, or, you know, like, where do we stand with this? Is this all new, or how do we feel? Awesome, half the list, that's pretty good. That's like way more than most people.
A lot of my background's in blogs. So I've done some of the stuff like particularly pertaining to blogs, but then there's a lot of stuff like the technical stuff that I've not really touched a lot.
Cool. Yeah, that's, again, probably a lot more than a lot of people do. Okay, I'm going to start going through each of these things and just give kind of an overview of what that looks like. Hopefully people are following. So when I say add our on-page optimizations, yeah, we're going to go through the list of URLs. So if you're doing this on your own right now, you'd go through each URL and you're going to do each of these on-page optimizations with that target keyword. So this is why it's so nice to just have that keyword from the beginning, you know exactly. Then you just go in and you add the keyword into the right spot and you just do those optimizations. So the first one is a custom meta title and description. So a meta title and a description, meta description, these are basically what show up when you type something into Google on the search engine results page. So, you know, like, let's say you're Googling graphic designer near me or whatever, and all these results come up and you see the title at the top, and then you see a little description, and then you see the title, like you see just all the way down the page. That's what you see. So you can actually modify those in your SEO settings of your website. So these are one of the things that Google uses to understand what the page is about. So what you want to do for all your pages or posts, this is also applicable to blogs, is add a custom meta title and description to each of those pages that we decided we were going to optimize. So your meta title should include that target keyword that we already established, and your business name and location if you're a local business. So for example, to going back to saying if I had a counseling clinic, and let's say I was optimizing my about page and my target keyword was psychotherapist Toronto. So I'm going to put this right into the beginning of my meta title, and then I'm going to put my business name, and that's my meta title. It's done. For the meta description, you want to try to entice the click more than anything. That's the most important part. So you think somebody's looking at like all these different results. So why should they choose yours? So you want to keep it kind of short, snippy, to the point. Click here, this is what you're going to get. So if you can include your keyword in there, awesome. So for example, if we write something like searching for a psychotherapist in Toronto, we can help. Our approach is trauma-informed and rooted in mindfulness. Book online now. To the point, clear, you know my approach, and I still use my keyword. Perfect. So what we want to do is we want to create a meta title and a meta description for each one of those pages. Are we clear on that? Yeah. Awesome.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So for the meta descriptions for ranking, is it best to keep it as clear and as limited to one keyword as possible? Or are there any benefits to adding in a second keyword?
So it's a good question. So what we really want to do, and this is kind of why I suggest doing the keyword map at the beginning, is we really want to keep the keywords separated. So that's a really common thing that I see when people are just getting started with SEO, is they use their same keywords. Like if they're, let's say, a hormone nutritionist or something, they'll try to put that keyword in all the pages, but then you almost like start confusing Google, and it's not really sure which page to show. So that's why we really want to make that keyword map to put one keyword per URL. So in that case, you would just want to put that one keyword that we've already selected for that page in that meta description. Does that answer your question?
Yes, perfectly. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, cool. And then we have headings. So if you are familiar with anything on your back end of your website, you know, building or changing anything, you often see the different size headings on your website. So headings, Google uses headings to understand what the page is about, how the content is organized, and importance. Because again, if you think back to how Google, that picture of like how Google sees it, all Google's seeing is like just a ton of like jargon, right? So the headings or the heading tags help Google to know like, okay, this is what the page is about because this is on the biggest heading. This is like how the content's being broken up, rather than just like everything as a wall in that, you know? So what you want to do is you want to have one H1 heading. So it's like heading 1. So you want to have one H1 heading on your page. Usually you already have one of these, so you might just need to optimize it. But ideally the best or like standard practice is to have one H1 and try to get that target keyword in there. And again, we just want to use only the keyword that we've put in the keyword map. So this is why the keyword map is so fundamental. So let's say I was optimizing my anxiety therapy page. So I'm trying to target people who are searching for anxiety therapy in Toronto. So in my H1 heading, I want to have anxiety therapy Toronto. And then you can break up the page using what's called an H2 heading. So like, what is anxiety therapy? And like different kind of questions or things just to break up the content. This is good for user experience as well, because like, what's worse than landing on a website and it's just a wall of text? You're like, oh my God, never mind. I don't want to read this. So this is, again, kind of a high level overview, but try to use headings. Most builders already kind of build it in. You almost always have an H1 anyways. And then if you just use kind of like H2 to break things up, that's perfect. H3 is not overly common. You don't necessarily need to use it too much, but more so for like long form blog posts. But I would say biggest thing, have one H1 heading, use H2s to break it up. Add your keyword in there if you can. Any questions about headings?
I can let all my Squarespace people know that it has H1, H2, H3 plus P1, P2, P3. I think they've even just added P4. And this is something, just like you said, Ashley, as a website designer and creating that user experience, it's really important that we create these hierarchies of text just to get people to read it. Right. So it's usually a sign when we see a website and they're like, hey, I don't think, I think I can do this myself. And we see this big block of text. It's an indicator that like, hey, we need a designer in there. And that's where that like fluid relationship between the designer and the copywriter comes in too. Right. But anyways, I just like my Squarespace people to know that that is like a possibility. It gets a bad reputation for SEO. So
yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Okay, so, and then the next thing is alt text. So it's the main reason for alt text is for accessibility. So it's for people who are using screen readers, who are visually impaired. It's meant to be a description of what the image is. And, you know, sometimes you go to a website and like the image is broken, and then there's a little like thing that says, this is a person sitting on a chair laughing, or something like that. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's what's supposed to be there. That is essentially what alt text is. However, it also helps Google to understand what the image is about, and it's an optimization opportunity. So it's a little bit cheeky, but what I recommend doing is adding your keyword into the alt text where you can that still makes sense for accessibility. So for example, if I was optimizing my about page for SEO specialist, I would try to do something like SEO specialist, drinking coffee, laughing, sitting on a bar stool. It's a little cheeky. Is it perfect? No, but it does really help. So I do still suggest it. And so you can add this pretty easily just in the back end of your website. Usually you click a little gear or a pencil or something, and there's an opportunity to just add your image description, or sometimes it'll say, tell Google what this picture is, or something like that. So it's pretty easy to add that in the back end. Okay, and then I have the last little thing on my recommendations, and these are slightly less important than the other items I just went over, but still important and relatively easy, are adding some internal links. So this is just really great for user experience, to keep people on your website. You can link informative blog posts, you can link to other important pages. Just basically, like, it helps the user navigate your website, helps Google to understand which pages are important and what the pages are about. So if you link to, you know, your service with like, I offer EMDR therapy, and then you use EMDR therapy as the text to link to your EMDR page, it's like, that's telling Google what that new page is about. And it's also keeping people on your website. So if you can add some internal links, it's, without going super in depth, it's helpful for your SEO. Also, adding at least like one external link. So that means linking to something that's not on your website. So linking an external website that you trust. It's just helpful for Google to understand the context of your industry, your content, your location. If you're a local business, like let's say you're a photographer in Cambridge and you link to a Cambridge studio. That's super helpful because Google understands, okay, so she's in the photography industry and she's probably in Cambridge. You're linking to a local business. So again, these aren't like, this won't make or break your SEO, but I had to include it in here because it is also still important. Okay, that is all of my on-page stuff. How do we feel about that? Good? Okay.
It was awesome, Ashley.
Okay, okay,
Really
good.
good. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so then I have my step 5. So this is kind of, I would say, bonus content. Like if you do all of those things up until now, step 1 to 4, you are so far ahead than so many other websites. Like that is just phenomenal, So step 5 is really just like supporting and kind of like giving that extra oomph, So like if you've already done 1 to 4, pat yourself on the back, have a glass of wine, celebrate, because you've already optimized your website mostly. Yes. But you can continue to build your off-page SEO. So if you're a local business, sign up for your Google My Business profile, or they always change the name, Google Business Profile, whatever, Google My Business, whatever you want to call it. It's a free profile. It's for local businesses specifically. It's really easy to set up. It's one of the best things that you can do for local SEO, and it's literally free. So do it. If you're a local business, don't celebrate yet because you need to do that first. So to optimize, all you really need to do is sign up and verify. They're going to want to send you a little thing in the mail that has a code just to verify that you are in fact a local business. add a little description, add your services, add some photos, get some reviews, done. So helpful. You can see, like, especially if you're in a smaller area, this can make a huge difference for your business, and it's free. It's literally free. So definitely do that. And then other kind of off-page things that you can do is, if you're a local business, sign up for local directories. I know they sound kind of dumb. Like, who uses Yelp? It's not so much for the users. It's more so for, like, it's a thing to kind of prove your authority to Google. Maybe you might also get somebody from there. I don't know. Probably not, but it's going to help with your SEO. So sign up for some local directories. And then, regardless of the type of business you have, make sure you're getting any kind of like low-hanging backlinks that you can, low-hanging fruit. Like, anytime you're on a podcast, or if you went to a school that has an alumni page, or you write a guest post for somebody, make sure that you're getting a link from that website back to your website, because that's what's going to give you what's called domain authority. We're not going to cover that today, but it's going to help you with your SEO, with your off-page SEO, because it's going to prove to Google, it's one of the things that Google uses to say, oh, this website must be an authority because other websites are linking to it. So again, this is super high level for off page, but these are things that you should be doing, like, as a sort of basic. And like, this is something that you can kind of do moving forward, and just something to keep in mind. Do we have any questions about off page?
I do.
Yes.
What do you mean by local business? You were sort of phrasing it as if it was different than what I think of local business.
So within SEO, you kind of have, like, you have organic SEO and then you have local SEO. So you have two types of SEO. So a local business would be someone who either serves an area. So like maybe like a carpenter, or someone who goes to people's houses, or someone who has a storefront. So like a beauty salon, like a clinic, a health clinic, something like that.
So like,
and then you have
person?
Sorry,
Like in person, like they sort of are limited to their location.
yeah, exactly. So it's somebody who has, like, either an address, a physical address, or somebody who serves particular geographical areas.
Got it.
You kind of, like, a bit of a gray area when you have people who live in one area but also work online. I'd say it's a bit of a gray area. The thing is when you do local SEO, you're also doing organic SEO. So there's a ton of overlap. But I would say, like, if you're primarily working online, like for you, Meredith, like, you work online mostly, I would say you could set up a Google My Business if you wanted to target your specific city.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you try, like, I've had friends who are like, oh, I'm just going to serve all of Canada and I'm going to set up a Google, like, Google shuts it down within 24 hours. Like, it's just a waste of time. I wouldn't even bother. So, but there are certain businesses that are kind of right on the cusp.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. Now
Okay.
I get it now. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions about off page? Good. Okay. So we've almost made it. So now we can just rinse and repeat, essentially. So my step 5.5 is just continue to build new content and optimize based on, the process that we've already used. So consider what kind of content you want to create. So again, like I mentioned before, like, pages tend to be a little bit more lead focused. Depending on what your goals are, they tend to be a little bit more lead focused. So consider if there's opportunities for you to build out more pages. So like, if you are a medical spa, or you are even a designer, a copywriter, or whatever your business is, if all of your services are on one page, first thing, break those out, because it's really, really difficult to optimize, because remember, we're only really choosing about one keyword per page. So if you have 5, 6, 7, 10 services on one page, it's going to be incredibly difficult to try to optimize for all of those individual services. So build a couple pages per month, build out your service pages, do the optimizations that we just went through. And that's a content strategy in and of itself. And then I always say, try to like maximize your pages, and then start really honing in on blogging and get those more informational keywords, get those FAQs, start building yourself as an authority, and start increasing your keyword reach. And plan ahead. Conduct your keyword research before creating posts. I see clients all the time that come to me with like a year's worth of blogging, and they've done so much work and it's so great, but it's not keyword or strategic focus. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But like, other than like you sharing on social, which is still awesome, or sharing to your list is awesome, it's so difficult to try to put a keyword into something that's like, it's so much easier to plan ahead, and choose your keyword. It's almost like putting like a square, I don't even know what that is, square peg in a round hole, or whatever that saying is. It's like plan ahead and organize around keywords rather than trying to go back and optimize after. And that's all I have for you guys. That wasn't too bad, right? Do we have questions?
I think I have a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, Nikisha, go ahead.
If I'm doing a blog post, right, and I'm optimizing it, am I only optimizing it with one keyword for the title, like the heading, the subtitle, and the paragraph? Like, is that how it works, or can I have more than one keyword, let's say, like in the body of the blog post?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it's kind of like you can optimize for more than one keyword.
Okay.
But I just find it's like it can get too complicated. So,
Okay.
But what I would say for blogging is still choose that core keyword, but then you can have what's called like secondary keywords, and you can mix those into like your H2 headings in your blogs. Because like one really solid blog piece can rank for like hundreds of keywords. But you still want to choose that, like, you still want to try to keep it as focused on like that one core keyword, and then you can do kind of your secondary keywords throughout the post. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I was just thinking, like, could it happen where like my content has multiple keywords unintentionally, right? And does that impact, I guess, the search results?
Yeah, so it definitely can. And so what I like to do is, like, if you monitor your website using like Search Console or something like that, and you can see that you're kind of getting maybe some clicks, maybe some impressions around something, and you're like, it's not super related, that's a great opportunity to pull that into a whole nother post, because Google's already associating your website with those other keywords. So if it's like, if you're kind of ranking for two things that aren't super similar, I would turn it the second kind of like, I would optimize one for one set of keywords or one keyword, and then I would pull it and I would do another piece of content on those secondary keywords. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about where to find that, those keywords. Like when you're doing the analytics, right? I'm just trying to remember where I would have seen like those it tell me what the keywords are that are performing on that.
Nikisha, if you go to the back end of your website, I think I'm trying to think if it's settings and then analytics, or if it's analytics. Yeah, right in your website. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check that. Thanks.
Yeah. You can also check if you, and I'm not sure if you have it set up. If not, it's free to set it up, but it's called Google Search Console. And then you can see, like, on a page by page basis what terms you're gaining impressions and clicks for. So that can be really helpful for content generation as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
That was amazing. You made something that I know feels really overwhelming and scary into something that I'm like, I can do that, not to take away from your genius, but I think that is what makes you a bit of a genius, is that you can like really make something sound simple and empower us that, it is not a scary beast at all. So I just wanted to say that. Great work.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so happy that you said that. Yeah, because I do feel like SEO gets a really like scary kind of overtone, but it doesn't need to be. If you break it down into small steps, it's super straightforward.
I think part of it, like, I probably get 5 emails a day from some person saying, hey, My Wolf Design, we just checked out your website and it looks great, but it's not, and it's so spammy that it creates this, you just want nothing to do with it, right? Because or like you probably get them too, right? So unfortunately you're up against a bad reputation.
Yeah. And I think even sometimes even within the industry, there's a lot of like jargon and kind of fear. Like often I talk to clients where they're like, I got this quote from this agency and they said that I have to redo my entire website and it's going to cost me $12,000 and and it's like, no, you don't need to do that. We're just going to start here and it's fine. We'll be able to get the results you want. You don't need to pay $12,000 or you don't need to pay $8,000. It's often, I think some people do take advantage of the fact that a lot of people don't fully understand it and then they just rip them off and then people get scarred and they don't ever want to do SEO.
Yeah. I think, what are your thoughts? So what I hear is, hey, should I be paying month over month over month, not for just a specific period of time, but like forever, some monthly, like I had somebody saying she paid $800 a month for SEO. And I was like, look, number one, I'm not sort of the expert here, but from what I understand, like I'm asking questions like, does that include blogs? Like I'm thinking maybe, but no, it was just them monitoring the SEO. So am I right in saying that's a red flag like that?
Yeah. So I think, yes, it is a red flag, 100%. Okay. I think that it is common to go on month to month for like an extended period of time. Like I have clients who I've been working with for 6 months, 8 months, and we work together on a monthly basis. And I monitor, but I also create content. I also publish content. I'm also doing link building. I'm doing other things. So yes, that's a huge red flag. It is normal for SEO campaigns to be long, and because there's almost infinite amount of things that you can do. Like there's almost always going to be more stuff you can do. You can make your website stronger. There's almost always stuff that you can do. But I've worked at an agency and I have a lot of friends who work at agencies. And I also know that like, there's a lot of people who get really screwed over where they're paying a retainer and like the account's not even getting really looked at. And so I think that is also something that like people need to definitely be aware of, is making sure that if you are paying monthly, like one thing that I try to do with my clients to like make them feel more comfortable is either I send them a report every month with everything that was completed, everything that's going to be completed next month, all the metrics in progress, and then an optional call to go through everything if they want, so that they know work is being done, It's definitely not uncommon in the industry to see that. Yeah.
I think that's really important. I think that arms us with information on, if you're kind of interviewing people, confirming that you received that so that you're not throwing money out the door.
Yeah, because it can be easy. I think it's like a lot of things, right? Like a lot of like even with design maintenance or development or anything like that, people just get screwed over all the time, unfortunately. But
I have a question that might be kind of complicated,
okay.
But I know you spoke about particularly when we're looking at services pages, if you have multiple services, it can be helpful to break them out into different pages so that they can be more optimized for a specific keyword. And yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think where I'm thinking about it is in the page hierarchy, and when it comes to the menu on a website, having so many pages, how does Google make sense of the hierarchy when there is a different page for each kind of service? I don't know if there's like a clear answer for this, but I was just curious.
Yeah, so I mean, unless certain services are like significantly more important, I would think that like pretty much all your service pages should be held at almost like an equal weight from Google. Okay. So I would usually do like a drop down or something, like just logistics wise, I would do like a services tab and then like a drop down or something. And then they're kind of all going to be held at the same weight. Right. There are ways that you can kind of like influence how Google kind of sees each page. So that would be like where internal linking would be really helpful or things like that. There are other things that you can kind of do to be like, no, this is like a primary page. But I would say like in my experience, most times like all of the service pages are kind of held at the same weight.
Okay.
I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You know, when I'm working on like website content, thinking about what's the best way to like lay out this website content, how can we do multiple service pages maybe, but still make sure that there's not so much in a hierarchy for Google to crawl, or even so much for the user to make sense of as well.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I would say usually I do the drop down, I think is the best. And yeah, just have it like as each service built out. And I like to almost create them as like their own almost like organic landing page. So it's like if somebody lands on that page for whatever service, because that's ideally what you're trying to do, right? Is get that page ranking higher. So somebody is ideally going to land directly on that page if from an organic standpoint. So you want to just kind of have all the information there. So yeah, I would say that's like industry standard, I think, is to just kind of have them broken out into things and then just have them as a drop down.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Thanks, Ashley. Anyone else? I think we're good, Ashley. Wow, look at that. It's 3:59. Man, nailed it. Okay, thanks for joining everyone, and a huge thank you to you, Ashley. I can't tell you how many golden nuggets were in there. I will be sending out the replay, Ashley's presentation, and I feel like you had something else.
I was just gonna send or like include a basic keyword map because I don't want anybody to overthink it. It's like literally 2 columns. So I'm gonna just send that out to keep it simple.
Okay, fantastic. Good stuff. Okay, well, I'll have that out in the next hour for everyone. Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye.